Naruto and Sasuke seem to be compared in some way or another through basically every arc, such as how Zetsu literally notes that Sasuke, following his victory over Killer Bee, probably isn't stronger than Sage Mode Naruto. However, what if we extended that down a bit more? Is there anything to actually say that Sasuke could beat the man who literally beat Sage Naruto, Pain? Well, today that's exactly what we're going to be discussing. The Rinnegan versus the Sharingan, the Akatsuki Hunter versus the Akatsuki Leader. With that though, I would like to give credit to Six, who did this video not that long ago, so would recommend checking out that video. He had several really good points in there that I think you guys could learn, but I have several more points that I also think would help flesh out this topic and this discussion here. And I also got my boy Sage of Thick Calves back, and for those who don't know and have been wondering where he is, trust me, we're still in love. Okay, just say what's good, bro.
It's still my Pookie, bro. I'm just kidding. Pause. No, I'm glad to be back, dude. We both been out here hustling, grinding. It's funny, we did quite a few collabs together back in the day, but Virtue just hates me now, so that's what it comes down to.
Okay.
No, I'm glad to be back on the channel. We have a really exciting topic, so I'm excited to break this down with you and sort of hopefully correct a meta that seems to have been established.
Yeah, and I guess for the way we'll kind of structure this is super simple. It's literally just going to be Hebi, then Taka, and then a brief section about EMS Sasuke, which shouldn't be that contentious, but I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna say that, well, why don't you talk about kid versus kid? Like, nobody really cares. But for a really brief period and a little time before that, I want to delve into Pain to kind of set a benchmark of where he is as a character. Now, I'll let you talk as well, because I've been talking for, the last minute and 50 seconds or whatever. So basically, Pain's a really strong character, and he's always portrayed to be kind of a narrative rival with Itachi, both being above Naruto and Sasuke, our main and side character, respectively, who have Sannin mentors, but the Sannin mentors gain a higher form and then are beaten up by Pain and Itachi. Pain has the Rinnegan, Itachi has the Sharingan. They come together. Obito's got the Rinnegan and Sharingan in the war. You guys see the shonen narrative there? So they are kind of implied to be relative, and this is pretty important when going into some of these initial sections, as we'll talk about later. But as we know, like, he fights Jiraiya literally in Sage Mode, and Sage Mode Jiraiya is kind of his form that's implied to surpass the Sannin, because now he's no longer a Sannin, but the Hermit Sage of Mount Miyaboku, which is kind of similar for Orochimaru and his eight-headed Hydra that's compared to a dragon god, and it's a serpent that even surpasses himself, and so that's pretty clear as well. And obviously he goes on to fight Sage Naruto, who would be superior to Jiraiya, and it's literally stated for the chapter synopsis statement that Pain has power superior to Naruto, which is super telling for his scaling. But do you want to touch on Pain and go a little more into that?
Yeah, so the thing about Pain is, like, at the end of the day, he's not only potentially, I know this goes back and forth, but, like, called the strongest man in the Akatsuki. Now, obviously, I believe he's below Obito. He can be stronger than Obito and, like, still lose, but, like, in terms of his overall power and might, Pain is one of the strongest characters in the series up until we get into the war arc, and he's just definitively above the Sannin, who are obviously really powerful characters. So, like, he kind of sets a new benchmark for the power system in Naruto and sort of the levels of combative ability later on in the series. And so he's a really interesting opponent for somebody like Sasuke, who's got a great intellect, and later on in the series obviously develops a really interesting and versatile arsenal. But the big problems that I see before we even get into these matchups are his versatility and his stamina. I think those two are the strong point for Pain. Like, he's got a ridiculous amount of chakra, with Nagato being an Uzumaki. He's able to fight for hours upon hours on end, literally solo the Hidden Leaf Village, and then fight Naruto, who he's not trying to kill because he's trying to capture him. And like, with all of this going on, like, after getting pre-fatigued before fighting Naruto, he then, in my opinion, like, beats Naruto until Naruto, like, meets his parents and all that stuff, and is able to subdue the Nine Tails, which he wouldn't have had to do that had he not been trying to capture the Nine Tails. He could have killed him way earlier in the fight. So Pain is just a super impressive character to cover, and I think a lot of people underrate him because they scale him below this Sage Naruto, where in all reality, if he was trying to kill him, he could have killed him multiple times. So I'm really excited to dig into, like, how his abilities would match up with Sasuke's at different points in time, and how the scaling, I think, is a bit less contentious in more cases, and in some cases, and a bit more contentious in some than a lot of people would think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think another thing that's super telling to kind of bounce off 2 points you made was kind of about, Pain being the strongest man in the Akatsuki. And I've heard a lot of people say that Itachi and Obito aren't even members, which is still very telling, even if you take that and you give it that lowest interpretation, saying it applies to him, of course, that, the statement as a whole, it's still him above, several S-class fighters that are capable of combating Bijou and, 1,000-man army in the data book each. You know what I mean? Which is super telling. It goes very consistently with how he beats up the entire village, which kind of depends on your size of Konoha, but, I mean, he's able to beat up, like Kakashi, who's literally the strongest Jonin in 2 different medians, being the first data book and the first fan book, which is super telling. He's also called Invincible in the 3rd data book, which covers up to 402, chapter-wise, I believe, which would mean that basically, in the Akatsuki are in there, and I've heard some people say, well, Itachi's dead. Yeah, almost every single Akatsuki member is. That's fine. It's like, what is it, like Kisame and like Konan, those 2 are still alive, right? So
you know what I mean? Nobody left in the Akatsuki, so it's like, who are you comparing it to?
Yeah, it's like, clearly, well, okay, if like you want to take it in a better context, you don't think he's massively above all the Akatsuki members like that, or at least just like Itachi and Obito, that's fine. It could just be that everyone who could oppose Pain, he would be invincible in comparison to, which is really telling. But I guess to start off with Hebi Sasuke, listen, Hebi Sasuke is one of the most controversial characters as of recent, and probably not for good reason, as many people are trying to compare Hebi Sasuke to even characters as strong as KCM1 Naruto via how Sasuke, following his absorption of Orochimaru, can perception blitz Suigetsu, who then over 100 chapters later, by the way, can intercept the V1 Raikage, who then also goes on to fight KCM1 Naruto on solid footing in like 80 chapters after that. Now, if you don't see the problem, then allow me to walk you across this terribly broken bridge and hopefully you don't fall halfway through. Firstly, we should establish that Sasuke doesn't get any stronger following his absorption of Orochimaru, and certainly doesn't get Orochimaru's power stacked on top of his. And this is made evident by how, firstly, Orochimaru's body still works, and it basically is Orochimaru flooding so much chakra into the victim's body to then suppress their chakra and their will and soul for him to kind of control the body. So you wouldn't say that Orochimaru gets amplified by the victims and because their chakra and power still being there, but rather you can almost say he's weaker due to having to suppress that very power. We know this to be certainly the case for Sasuke, as certainly the entire point of Itachi drawing the fight out as long as he did was simply to bring Orochimaru's power out. Once Sasuke was weakened to a point where suppressing it was much more difficult, and then you start to hear Orochimaru, he's kind of like whispering, he's like, let me out, I'll give you the power, and then so he lets him out, and that's all it is. Then, this fits very perfectly with how the data book corroborates the manga, with how the power of the white snake increases his recovery ability as an added benefit, and the baseline gain is something more like his snake prone abilities, such as his body replacement technique, snake summons, and poison resistance, which is pretty crazy as well, rather than him just actually getting Orochimaru's combat speed and strength stacked on his, which Karin also seems to agree with following the Deidara fight, where she almost is in disbelief that Sasuke struggled that much against Deidara, yet killed Orochimaru. Which, while some try to just dismiss this statement entirely, there isn't really a good way to, considering it's just Karin stating that she can't believe that he beat Orochimaru, and Sasuke doesn't disagree, but answers that exact statement with Orochimaru's illness made him weak, that's all. So he literally corroborates this, which just fits perfectly when Orochimaru is going to get, revived later in the war, and Suigetsu's like, man, we can't bring him back. The only reason why you ever beat him was because he had his arm sealed away. You know what I mean? And this is pretty consistent because, again, he's considered quite literally like nothing, considered to these top tier Akatsuki members. Sasuke's not that strong. You know what I mean? And people like Orochimaru are considered to be, the most powerful and evil of all village enemies and stuff like that. He's fighting heroes and stuff like that. So this Hebi Sasuke meta, even at this baseline, there's more to it, by the way. It's really not that good. Do you want to touch on Hebi Sasuke some more?
Yeah, so, I think it's fair to set a high-end interpretation of a character and then a low-end interpretation of a character, but definitively saying things like he is, KCM Naruto level, I feel is a bit disingenuous. Nothing against the creators that do this, it's just not something that I think works for exactly the reasons that Virtue outlined. Not only is there a massive chapter difference between when Suigetsu gets blitzed by, Sasuke, and then whenever he is able to quote-unquote blitz the Raikage, which, probably body flicker. But again, there's so many different things that happen in that time span. And not only that, Virtue and I were talking about this before the call, like, I think one of the biggest things that breaks this chain is the fact that right before this Sasuke blitzing Suigetsu thing happens, Suigetsu is like, "Oh my god, are we there yet? I'm so tired." He sits down, and like Karin's like, "Can you
like
handle
4
that
times,
sword?"
by the way.
Yeah.
Like
It's
4
like,
times he sits down.
Exactly, and she's like, "Are you sure you can handle that sword? Like it looks, like, like you're tired." So like this is a significantly physically nerfed version of Suigetsu that gets blitzed by Sasuke. Now, that's not to say that Sasuke isn't physically above him. I think he is. But to suggest that this version of Sasuke blitzing this version of Suigetsu, and then 100+ chapters later, we have Suigetsu body flickering in front of V1A's attack, and then saying, "Oh, well, Sasuke above this Suigetsu, and this Suigetsu above A," super disingenuous. It doesn't work for clear and obvious reasons. So then it's like, okay, where does he scale? And I think the open admission to only being able to beat Orochimaru because he was sick or because his arms were sealed is enough for me to be like, okay, so he's some level below what a full power Orochimaru would be. And the fact that like he goes to like sneak attack Orochimaru as well with the Chidori spear is kind of evidence that like he doesn't think that he could take him on, very easily 1v1 like straight up. And even if you ignore that, this sick bedridden Orochimaru is able to like react to this through the door. So
yeah,
there are just a bunch of things that suggest that he's like sub-Sannin level at this point in time. And if he's sub-Sannin level, he's sub-Pain level, because Itachi just embarrasses Orochimaru, and Itachi's more of a rival to Pain. So, I mean, I like Hebi Sasuke. I think he's a cool character, but there's no way that we can actually get him to that level if we're being honest about the material and what takes place in these things. So him being sub-Sannin level should put him below Pain, in my opinion. Do you have anything else to add there, like on Pain, or sort of like how he relates to the Sannin or anything there?
Not really on Pain relating to the Sannin, but actually I have more that's funny about the Sasuke trying to kill the bedridden Orochimaru. Fun fact, when he does this, Orochimaru reacts to him not once. So he reacts to him the first time by crossing his arms up, the blade pierces his arms, right? And then another time when Sasuke's like, "Oh hell," and he's got to try to increase the, force to go through the arm to the chest. Orochimaru then reacts, moves him out of the way, and then Sasuke literally he goes into his 3-tone Way Sharingan and starts to activate his curse mark, which is very telling because both are likely speed amps, and I don't even got to get into that, but he's still like, "Oh man, this bedridden Orochimaru." And I know a lot of people want to talk about this bedridden Orochimaru and say he's just as strong as the one that fought the Four Tails, which sure is fine, right? But some people are like, well, that one was still way above Jiraiya because you look at their Four Tails performances. And this simply isn't true. It's mainly that Orochimaru's style allows him to combat stronger fighters, because you look at how whenever he punches him in the face, Naruto then responds by ripping him in half, yet Snakes reattach his organs. So it's pretty clear in that instance. But if you look at the Jiraiya flashbacks, we get 2, one from Naruto, one from Jiraiya, and Jiraiya is propped up with injuries, one with more injuries and not than the other, and the rubble that he is laying on is different in each panel, which would imply that he got up and fought Naruto one time after having a giant hole carved in his chest and still managed to seal him. Maybe once, maybe twice. So this is pretty telling. So this is not that base.
Hey, Virtue, is he in Sage mode?
Yep. No, this is base.
Okay.
No,
so you could easily say like Jiraiya not trying to kill Naruto, his student that he thinks is the child of prophecy, so therefore he's not actually going all out. He has to be holding back to some degree in order to only be sealing his Nine Tails chakra away. So it's like if somebody is like, "Oh, Four Tails Naruto above Jiraiya, therefore Four Tails Naruto," like, no, that's not how that works. Jiraiya, if he's going all out, there's no evidence that Four Tails Naruto can even compete with that, because he's not able to also the Orochimaru stuff, he's laughing at him the whole time. He's like, there are moments where he's like, "Oh wow, if I get hit by that, I might die." But it's like the dude can barely use his arms. He's got a body that's rejecting him, can only use the body replacement twice, and like is notably significantly weaker than what he would be in his normal state. So anybody that uses this Four Tails Naruto thing to say, "Oh, Four Tails Naruto above the Sannin," stop it. You're ignoring all context. So I just had to add that in there.
No, yeah, I want you guys to stick with this narrative. And do you guys think No Arms Orochimaru could beat up Tsunade when she was reacting to Madara? Be honest. Okay, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
But you look at their comparisons between base Jiraiya and Orochimaru, presumably base, base to base. They're implied to be equals, on par with another, and the typical Ebisu, like, it takes a Sannin to fight a Sannin-esque statement, like, Orochimaru is able to fight on par with Hiruzen, the Hokage, and then Jiraiya is offered the position to be Hokage. So there is certainly a clear level of relativity, but I have heard some people say, well, this is in reference, since Orochimaru's clearly way stronger by feats, this has to be like Sage Mode Jiraiya and base Orochimaru. That's fine. That just means it's way above the one that was reacting to Sasuke, who didn't get stronger after the fact. And in case you guys forgot, Pain beat up Sage Mode Jiraiya so bad that when Sage Mode first came out, Pain was still holding back by a Sage Mode level increase because he gets kicked in the eyes when the data book notes that Jiraiya hardened his resolve. And then in the very next fact, there's a smoke bomb up. Pain's eyes are closed. He's looking the wrong direction. Jiraiya comes up, begins to strike, and he catches a Sage Mode punch behind his back with his eyes closed.
Yep.
Are you guys kidding me? Like, we can't be doing this. I am totally of the opinion that you could say Sage Mode Jiraiya is relative to Pain in some aspect. Like, on a low end, like, the chapter synopsis statement says that now that it's one-on-one, Jiraiya's on the road to victory. That's fine. But the key word is one-on-one. It's not a three-on-one, he's on the road to victory. No, it's one-on-one. So one path is a potentially Sannin level. And then how many paths does he have? Okay, he has 6. This means that he would be able to beat up Sasuke with every single path. Now, that's just one way of going about this. I'm not saying that's super concrete or anything. It probably should be. But the point is that Sasuke, no matter how he goes into this fight, isn't, one, a KCM1 level threat, and 2, isn't probably going to be combating pain on any higher footing and should be inferior in some regard. So what can his abilities do? Like, can his abilities maybe catch him back up? You know what I'm saying? Can he, like, twin snake or use, like, the snakes that come out of his sleeves to maybe catch a path and hold him down? Probably not. I just see the Ashura path just using his rocket boosters on his feet to just fly around and then just shoot missiles at all the snakes. Like, if he summons, this is one point we talked about that you brought up, like, he could summon Manda, but it doesn't matter because Diva is literally just going to literally kill it. Like, just kill it with one, push, one almighty push, which is super telling as well. And there's really so much he can do. He can even do, like, another almighty push strategy like he does in the war, where he gets inside the chameleon and then fires it out, which is also just a nasty strategy, by the way, that he definitely should have used more in the pain form. But do you want to touch more on his abilities and lead to the conclusion of this fight?
Yeah, here's the thing. Like, what is Sasuke going to do if the animal path summons come out? At this point, he doesn't have Amaterasu, so he's not one-tapping them. It takes prep time for him to set up Kirin, and even if he has Kirin, it's probably only going to hit one of them. If he tags that dog summoning, he's cooked. Like, let's say he does, like, the animal summons, the animal path summons come out, and then he summons Manda 2 or whatever. Like, okay, so then what happens? He just, like, Manda goes and, takes out a couple of them maybe, but there's, like, how many animal path summons are there? There's like 4 or 6 or something crazy like that. Okay,
there's a lot more. He has more that we don't see. Like, he has the rhino, the crab, the panda, stuff like that.
Right. So he's got all these different summons that can, at least give Manda some issues. And if Manda bites the dog, it will split in half. And Manda has no counter for the dog. So, at this point in time, Sasuke is having to face 6 opponents who all likely scale to potentially maybe above him whenever they're actually, like, fully serious, moving at full speed. And he has nothing to one-tap any of them. Like, that doesn't take significant prep time.
And
like,
I don't even mean to cut you off, but
no,
like, the chameleon could be a problem. The only reason why it didn't come out against Naruto is because Ma and Pa were there, and they countered it last time with their sensory, and they sliced it in half. And that's why it has bandages when it's revived in the war. But that's the only reason why it wasn't brought out. So it could be brought out here, and that strategy would be implemented because, Sasuke might be able to see it with his base Sharingan, but is he going to see the almighty push coming through it? Probably not.
Yeah, and there's no indication given that, like, characters can actually see the almighty push. You can just see the force off of it, and, like, it's described as gravitational waves, so that makes sense. So not only does Pain have Bansho Tenin that could pull Sasuke towards him, and Sasuke has no counter for that, he also has Shinra Tensei, which should be able to do significant damage to Sasuke, and Sasuke wouldn't be able to see it. Then you have all these missiles firing at him. You've got 6 different animals that come at him, one of which he has no way of dealing with. He cannot take down the dog summon. He has nothing in his arsenal that can do that. So it's like, what's he going to do? Like, at best case scenario, he takes down a couple paths of Pain, and if they get revived, and then he's fatigued, and then Orochimaru comes out, and then Pain is fighting the eight-headed Hydra. You know, like that's it. Like the Pain literally has Shinra Tensei as a win con. He's got ripping his soul out as a win con. He's got the Rinnegan rods as a win con. The animal summons are just going to be a massive issue for him. And meanwhile, these missiles are going to be just like exploding around him, causing major issues too. So Hebi Sasuke is just going to get overwhelmed, out-hacked, and out-stamina'd 10 times out of 10.
Dude, even the Rinnegan rods are a problem. Like because literally Sage Naruto, you know, can break them, and then the like what's it called? The six tails can like snap them out. You know what I mean? That's literally
Kakashi's able to snap them in half too, bro.
Okay, brother. Okay, back to Kakashi now. Okay, but you know these are clearly very formidable. So these are something that could even cause Sasuke a problem. And his strength feats by this time aren't really what we've ever questioned or talked about. And it's always been, well, he has X, Y, and Z of a speed feat. Even like his KCO1, that was speed feat. We talked about the Orochimaru reacting. That's a speed feat. That's everything we've gone through because he's not like a brute force fighter. Like an example would be Kakuzu, right? Which is pretty telling. And as you know, I mentioned earlier, there's also a lot of summons. You know what I mean? Like I can't name all in my head, but he's got like the bird, the dog, the rhino, the panda, the crab, the chameleon. You know what I'm saying? Like he's got so many summons, and he's also able to just like break all the bones, like in the toads and stuff that Naruto pulls up. How many does he pull up with? 5, 6? You know what I mean? Like what's Sasuke gonna pull up with for this background fighting? And this also isn't a Pain that fought Naruto, because that Pain was fatigued, which is something many people don't bring up, but obviously it's become more known now just how fatigued he was. You know what I mean? And it's never gonna happen like Chibaku Tensei is gonna come out, but what if it does? Okay, he's done. What if Chaotic Shinra Tensei comes out? Okay, he's done. He's not gonna fly away from it or anything like that. You know what I mean? He's not gonna, like, I wouldn't even say he can reverse summon out, because people don't talk about how the Chibaku Tensei...
He cannot see it. You know, you're talking about the Chibaku. I was talking about the Shinra Tensei. Like, the Shinra Tensei, legitimately Pain could just, like, have the animal path, like, run away and then summon the rest of the paths of Pain outside of the blast. And then Pain could just Chaotic Shinra Tensei, and even if Sasuke has all of his summons out, he, along with his summons, are all getting one-tapped. Like, there's just nothing he has in his arsenal to deal with that at this point in time. Nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. There's so much he could do that just Sasuke just doesn't have an answer for. We also haven't even talked about the Naraka path that could bring up paths that Sasuke, you know, could say hit or whatever, you know, and take him down. They're just going to get brought back. And he's not like, you can't even say he's like equal to Itachi in intelligence, which simply isn't true, and it's never really implied to be such. You know, and Itachi, he was able to counter like the vision and stuff, you know, pretty quick. We have no idea if Sasuke could. You know, you can't really translate those two. So, in my opinion, I'm definitely going with Pain. I'd say like 8 times out of 10. 8 times out of 10.
Bro, I got Pain 10 times out of 10. I just don't.
All right,
think,
you're right. I'm tripping. Yeah, no, you're right. Because, I was being nice.
Yeah, he has the win cons to end it pretty early with the summons, the Rinnegan rods, the versatility. Sasuke's gonna have to deal with 6 different goons that can all have they all have shared vision, so they're gonna be really difficult to hit. He doesn't have any like real long range ninjutsu that's gonna be a huge problem. Like all of this stuff is just, and then you take into consideration the fact that he scales below the Sannin as well. So it's like he's not blitzing them. He has nothing in his arsenal long range that's gonna do anything. And they can end it quickly, or they could just drag the fight out, and he's getting fatigued way before Pain is. So there's just no win cons here for Sasuke, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I think we've beat a dead horse enough, you know.
It's dead in the grave and buried and had roses on it. So this thing is gone. But another thing to touch on Taka Sasuke, it's pretty clear that the one that comes to fight B and capture B is not as strong as Pain, and it's kind of implied as much that he's not as strong as Sage Naruto by Zetsu, because Naruto beat Pain, or from what he knew. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, what can this Taka Sasuke do? This early one, probably nothing. His Amaterasu could take down one Pain, and then Sasuke's screwed. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's really not that bad. And again, Naraka can come into play here, and that's Amaterasu is a last resort option. You could say he might be able to use 2 if you think it requires the full chakra usage for 1 to deactivate it. I've heard that before. I've never really subscribed to it, but if you do, that's 2 at most. He has 6 paths, not 2. So this isn't really a big deal. So there's nothing to say that this Sasuke could win or anything like that. There's nothing to assert this B here over Pain, because literally, and I'm not one to say that B throttled Sasuke either, but B is constantly training. That's literally what he was doing on the first page. He's introduced right at the beginning of this fight. It's him literally training, and we see him de-evolve evolve out of the Yuki form because he's training in that cave and whatnot, which is just super telling for him. So yeah, I guess we can talk about this Kage Summit one, which should already be established to be above the Hebi Sasuke form, based on the like 4 main amps he gets, and we'll be taking the most powerful one at that point because clearly Hebi wasn't very close. So the first one is actually noted by Karin to say that she can't believe the chakra is colder than thicker than even compared to, his CM2 state. And what's colder and thicker mean? Well, we can get into the nitty gritty of this, and it's actually just meaning that he would be getting stronger. And the reason why I say this is, one, because, well, his MS is progressively amping him over all these chapters and whatnot, so he is just getting stronger. And then we know that Fukasaku states, when in reference to adding Senjutsu, that if you can make your chakra more powerful, it'll add a real boost to your ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu. And then Tobirama states that the deeper the darkness gets, basically the stronger the person becomes until they are unstoppable. So here Sasuke is getting this amp. This is consistent as this is the only amp he gets that does not have a Susanoo evolutionary form. The Susanoo is faster and stronger than Sasuke's self, and it gets faster and stronger each evolution. So it's clearly 3 out of 4 times. There's something to prove he gets stronger, but this one, it might have just been like of the threshold to where the Susanoo was not ready to be unlocked yet, so maybe he just got it to the cusp, and then later he unlocks it when the MS comes out or whatever. So here we already can have him be established to be greater than even CM2 Sasuke at this early part right here, and he's in his 3-Tomoe area when he's still like reacting to the V1 Raikage, and he's able to combo attack with Suigetsu, who uses body flicker to help him, which is also just very consistent with how Suigetsu cannot really be backskilled to that other one that Sasuke in his Hebi form actually does kind of pseudo blitz when he's fatigued and whatever, right? So yeah. This Sasuke we're taking at the very end, right when he's got the V3 where he stated to be not even, they can't even believe it's Sasuke, you know what I mean? Like Obito, he's like his hatred is maturing and his body's responding to that. And Karin also just, notes this and corroborates this as well, which is super consistent because this Sasuke's best attribute by far is he might be, by this point, maybe above all the Kage one-on-one. I think Oniki could be questionable, but I think all the others he could be above one-on-one. But here, his best thing is his Susanoo, and I know I've been talking for a second, so before I let this off, one point I think you guys really need to see is these 2 pages on the screen here. And you notice that even like here, Danzo is full swing. He is full speed, mid-swing, about to go through Sasuke's neck. Sasuke is paralyzed through this curse mark, and literally his whole Susanoo can come up faster than Obito can Kamui, and Danzo can move this blade, 2 inches? You know what I mean? This entire Susanoo. And this one's also suppressed, as if you look at the left hand, it only has 5 fingers rather than 6, when the right hand does have 6. So this is super crucial, just so how unevolved this Susanoo form right here actually was, which is consistent with how it actually evolves literally in the bottom panels. So yeah, basically, this is super consistent with how fast the Susanoo is and how it can help him out. And things like the Inton and the Susanoo arrow are things that are faster than himself that would allow him to, almost hold like almost a little speed edge in like attack speed over like someone like Sage Naruto, who he's practically equals with, as implied by both the Ford data book and Naruto when he states that they would die if they fought. But yeah, I've been rambling. I'll let you touch on that for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that this is a much closer fight than what it was with Hebi, and it's largely because of the speed increase that he gets, but also the arsenal that he has. Like, we know that he's able to erect this Susanoo against Danzo, like, almost instantaneously, like, able to outspeed the Kamui and all that stuff, which is crazy, right? So that's going to be a massive help against a lot of the attacks that Pain is going to be launching his way. Now, at this point, it does still hurt him to do this. Like, he's not EMS yet. Like, he can't sustain this forever. It's something that drains a lot of chakra out of him. But then he has the Amaterasu and the Kagetsuchi, which are, massive bullets in his gun to fire at Pain. Like, those things are super effective. But here's the problem. Pain's arsenal is still so varied and so versatile that might not be enough to actually beat him. So this is the way that I look at it. Sasuke has gotten faster, he's gotten stronger, he's gotten a Susanoo, he's got the Kagetsuchi and all of that stuff, which is super impressive. He also potentially has Alba, like he's maybe has that summoning as well. We don't know. We know he has the Hawk and all that stuff, but let's just say for the sake of it, he does. The animal path is like the bane of his existence, because when Pain summons those animals, like, again, he doesn't really have a way to deal with any of them outside of like the Amaterasu and maybe the Susanoo arrows. But he has to pick his shots, because if he hits the dog with the Susanoo arrow, it's going to split. If he hits it with the Amaterasu, good for him, like he's taking care of it. But if he hits it with the arrow, or he cuts it with the Susanoo, or anything like that, that dog's going to multiply. And then he has maybe 3, 4, 5 other summonings that are going to come out that he has to use individual shots of Amaterasu and Kagetsuchi on, which is going to drain his chakra severely. And this isn't even talking about the missiles and all of that stuff that are going to be coming from the Ashura path. This isn't even mentioning the fact that there's a very real possibility that the only form of his Susanoo at this point in time that might be able to tank a Shinra Tensei is the fully armored version. Like anything below that, you could make an argument just gets blasted away, especially like the ribcage, right? Like if he's in the ribcage and he gets hit with a Shinra Tensei, that thing is crumbling, dude. I mean, there's no way that something that just got chopped in half and obliterated by and like his just regular chop is actually going to survive a Shinra Tensei. It's just not happening. So while I do think this is a lot better fight than before, because Sasuke does have better speed, like the arrows can be a major issue, but then again, you have the Preta path that can absorb them. You have the Diva path that can repel them. And this is like, he still has to figure out all of his abilities. He still has to fire multiple Amaterasu to counter the animal summons alone. And it's, dude, I'm just like, I don't see a way that he takes them down unless he just ignites all of them in Amaterasu off rip. But the Preta path would just absorb it, the Diva path would just repel it, and they would prioritize the Naraka path to revive the others. Like, it's really difficult to find any legitimate win cons here, because worst case scenario, Pain just out fatigues him and survives to the end until Sasuke goes blind.
Yeah, and while this one I think is a much better fight, you don't really have to talk about it quite as much, you know what I mean? Like, because there's a lot more to establish, rather than like the Hebi Sasuke, who has a few different areas of interpretation to go that are so spread out, it's super weird. But so this Sasuke is pretty consistent, and one thing I also want to bring up is how the Pain could just be slightly in a higher tier, right? Because we know that chapter synopsis statement says he's higher, and he's more powerful than Sage and Naruto, right? And this is consistent, as this EMS Sasuke and Sage Naruto are implied to be equals, and then Pain and Itachi are, relative or whatever, right? And this Itachi is only really surpassed by Sasuke and EMS, which is kind of stated, which is also consistent with all the times he's compared to Itachi throughout the summit, like how Danzo's like, oh, Amaterasu, you two really are brothers, and he's like, your Genjutsu is a far cry from Itachi's Tsukiyomi, it's a night and day difference, you know what I mean? There's so many comparisons throughout this, and of course, obviously, these Susanos that are being elevated, and I think one thing to talk about is, could he push him out of the Susanoo, which I think is interesting, and you brought up, if I think it could, if it would push Sasuke out, or push the whole Susanoo, or pull Sasuke out, or pull the whole Susanoo, and I think it could do either one. I actually don't know. It's kind of, I actually almost put it to what is Sasuke wanting to do, because if Sasuke is okay with detaching, I think it could happen, because Itachi can detach from his Susanoo when he bombs the Chubaku Tensei. He does it whenever the fight's over, and he's sitting talking to B, like literally the Susanoo is autonomously sealing Nagato, and he's just sitting there talking, and then he also does it kind of towards the end of the normal Sasuke fight when he's alive as well. And Madara also does this, like he'll exit the Susanoo, so they don't just have to be on one body, so they can be separated, so it could be one or the other, and I think it's almost as if the user of the Susanoo is wanting to be separated or not, so it might just pull the whole Susanoo, which could be interesting as well, or Sasuke could just let it pull the Susanoo, jump back, and use something like Inton, which Inton is really interesting. Like, I would grant you, like, Kabuto has the statement where he says it's the, the greatest ocular ability, which could be, like, true in a sense of diversity, because it has a lot of diversity, because it can be formed to armor, protection, it can manipulate the environment to your advantage, it can manipulate to a weapon, it could increase, attack power like it does with the Rasen Shuriken in the war, so there really is a lot for it that the Inton can do, which I would grant, but I like what you brought up as, like, it's kind of only going to happen to one path, and to say that he does a whole ring of spikes and instantly spawns into their chest, it's kind of like sticking a controller in his ass, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I would definitely say that Pain definitely wins this fight, for sure, but yeah, I guess we could talk about, I wouldn't say for sure, actually. Before we move on, I will say, I think this fight's pretty close. I think Pain wins like 7 out of 10 times. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I would say that as well, and I think, like the scaling, I think, is still, like, even if you want to say at this point in time, he's like, at or maybe slightly above the Sannin level. He's not at Itachi's level. We know that for a fact. We know that he doesn't actually reach Itachi's level until he gets the EMS. So if that's the case, then what are we talking about here? You know, like Pain rival to Itachi, Sasuke below Itachi, therefore Sasuke below Pain. Like that's just how that works. But also, like, just with the way their abilities interact, what are Sasuke's win cons? Amaterasu Kagetsuchi can be absorbed, can be repelled. That is a legitimate counter argument to that. The flame, or not flame arrows. This isn't Sukuna. The Susanoo arrows can be repelled or absorbed. Legitimate counter to that. Any of the paths of pain that get taken down, if Sasuke doesn't already know that the Naraka path can bring them back, they're probably getting brought back at least once. So those are the win conditions that Sasuke has. Meanwhile, Pain has the Rinnegan rods, which can get countered by the Susanoo. He's got, hitting him with missiles or whatever, countered by the Susanoo. He's got the Shinra Tensei, which might be countered by the Susanoo, but might still get blown away. It's kind of up in the air. But the big one is fatigue. Like, there's literally no way that Sasuke wins a battle or a war of attrition here. So I think that Pain should win this more times than not.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest, I said we could do a little section on EMS. Okay, I'll just say this. For EMS Sasuke, right? What is there to say? Okay, my boy, he's running alongside KCM 1.5 Naruto, who's stronger than KCM 1 Naruto, who's just the higher to Sage Mode, you know what I mean? Who is relative to Pain in some sense, whether you think Pain's slightly above or not, which is just probably true. And this one's he's also said to have, literally surpassed Itachi. We literally said that, I would say you think like a peak Edo Itachi is maybe above like Pain. I don't think that's disingenuous to say. So this Sasuke being above that level at least would be at least above Pain, and now his abilities are actually way faster and at the threshold they need to be to put him down. But yeah, that's the video. If you guys did enjoy, please consider subscribing and let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments below. I am really curious to hear your thoughts on, maybe you think that we're totally tripping that Hebi Sasuke puts Pain's face in the dirt, and that maybe he might actually beat Kage Summit, Sasuke with like 10 out of 10 times or something like that. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys do go over to Sage's channel and subscribe. You'll find some really good content over there. You'll enjoy. You'll learn something new. And yeah.
No, sub to Virtue too, bro. We're both trying to get above 10K by the end of the year, so let's do it.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. 10K by the end of the year, guys. Go ahead and subscribe. It's not happening.